Warren Ingram, we've not directly spoken about momentum this week. I'm very interested in getting an overview of what you think of this momentum debacle. Momentum were accused of withholding payment to the widow of a man murdered in a hijacking, and Momentum said we're within our rights. Their ombudsman said they were within their rights because the victim, Nathan, I've already forgotten his name. That's terrible of me.
Starts with a G.
Ganis had not disclosed the fact that he was diabetic, and that therefore meant that his premiums had been too low and he should have been paying higher premiums, and as a result of his failure to disclose, they weren't paying. All hell broke loose, and now they have paid and come up with a new mechanism to pay murder victims. What is your take?
I think I have to give a little bit of background to this. So the one is that I think I've built a fairly good reputation in the insurance industry of being anti-insurance, and it's hard earned, and I've worked very hard at doing that. So that's the context to what I'm about to say now. But I think we're kind of a nation of petty criminals, and I'll give you some examples. I cannot recall in the last three or 4 days since this broke, going through a traffic light where I don't watch every single driver that approaches an orange traffic light slow down and stop. What they do is they speed up. And that's not the law. That's against the law. And I can't tell you how many times I've actually gone through the red light. And then we look at youngsters. One CEO today tells me his youngsters in his business are really irritated with him because he had to remind him that downloading movies, using the company network is wrong. And they are now up in arms. And they're up in arms for two reasons. One, because they feel entitled to download movies, and that's called pirating. And secondly, that they can use company resources to do that.
And company time to
company
do that,
time,
yes.
And that's cool. They think it's their right, and that's kind of endemic in our country. So when we talk about insurance, let's just start with that. Is that kind of we are like that? That's how we roll. It might be that we're not unique and not the only country like that, but certainly that is the context. So if we can do that in that context, why can't we do it to insurance? And guess what? We do as a nation. We do it all the time. And then I have to look at the other side of this. And I ask myself the question, why is it that an actuary who let's say with 5 years experience, compared to an engineer who might build bridges with the same number of years of experience, why is it that the actuary earns so much more than the engineer? And let me tell you, I would rather have a very highly paid engineer building my bridge than a lowly paid one. And there is an issue there because the actuary understands the maths and understands the big numbers and how to tweak things, not for your and my benefit, but for the insurance company's benefit. And of course, I'm not saying that all actuaries are inherently evil. I'm sure there must be some good ones out there. I think I've met one, Rob Risconi. He's a good guy. but there is an issue here. And then I look at this.
I'm sitting so far away from you because I am not going to be party to the lightning bolts that are going to be coming your way. Hell hath no fury like an actuary criticized, right?
Like an actuary criticized. And so let's look at these actuaries and why is it that they get so much money? Why is it that they are paid so incredibly well? And they have been for many decades. And I just don't see that they're working in my interest as the client of the insurance company. I think they're working in the interest of the insurance company.
The insurance companies would argue, sorry to interrupt, and I know that you hope that I wouldn't. But the insurance company would argue, rightly or wrongly, and I'm testing this with you, that the actuaries are acting in your benefit because they are doing calculations for the risk pool. In other words, all of the members of the particular insurance pool who make contributions to say, Warren, you are less of a bad risk than Bruce, therefore Warren pays less of an insurance premium than Bruce. Bruce is a higher risk than Warren, therefore Bruce should pay more insurance. And that's the role of the actuary, surely.
And I think that's what kind of the lobbying body was telling you last night, if I remember, last night or the night before. And that's...
Could it be that is a fact?
I suspect that would be the principle, whether it's a reality on the ground.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay.
And my view there is that already there's an inherent problem there, in that they look at us as risk pool. That is the word that they use. That's the phrase that they use.
Not as individuals.
We are not people. We are a pool of numbers. And if we've got to make a decision to tweak a policy or tweak a health thing or whatever the deal is, that a few people are going to die because we're not going to pay it, well, it's better for the risk pool. And that's a problem for me. So
good. Yeah.
So I look at this issue and I think, okay, so we've got on the one side an entire country that doesn't really mind. It's kind of like white lies, but now we're on the commercial side of white lies. We don't really mind breaking the few odd little laws here, as long as we don't get caught. And on the one side, and on the other side, we're dealing with actuaries who then understand these numbers far better than we do, and have these massively complicated products that are just impossible to understand. How do I know that? Because I'm someone that studied this stuff. I'm a qualified financial planner, and I can't tell you that when I did my life assurance agreement with someone who had to pay to do it for me, that I really understood every single term and condition and when I would be covered and when I wouldn't.
Is the crucial point here, because one of the questions I asked the man from Momentum last week is, if I took up one of your policies, would I understand it? And he said, yeah, you should.
You should.
Which is not the same as yes, you will, because these things are infernally complicated because of the legalese and the T's and C's and the ifs, buts and maybes that accompany them. And we've had many, many discussions over many, many years in public and in private about my attitude toward the sort of premiums that we're expected to pay for these things, especially when it comes to things like disability pay and sickness benefits and all of that sort of stuff. And I find it frankly outrageous, the level of premium that we are expected to pay in order to get the cover. But then you shop around and you find that there isn't that much of a differentiation in the cost of stuff. And then you look for the people you believe are most likely to pay you out in the event of a crisis, and you go with them.
Yeah.
And that's not a great position, frankly, for an industry to be in.
No. And I mean, I think the big issue here is, when you go to a doctor and you believe that you've been badly treated, you can complain to a group of doctors who are not that doctor. It's called the Health Professionals Council, or whatever it's called. So there are a team on the other side of this who will take your complaint, vet it, and decide whether there is something to your complaint or whether it's just a frivolous issue.
The insurance industry's got the insurance ombud. The banking industry's got the banking.
No, but that's the difference, isn't it? So it's not a group of actuaries who understand the numbers as well as the actuaries on the other side of this equation. It's an insurance ombud. And guess what? They're smart people, but most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, most of the time, they understand the legal aspect of this. But
they're lawyers and advocates predominantly.
There we go. And so now, who understands the numbers better now? And how does this whole thing work? And to me, that's the big issue here. So I mean, I'm not saying don't take insurance. And that's what really made me grumpy in this whole thing, is what's actually happened is the entire industry has taken a knock, in my view, by this issue. And part of it is caused by people who weren't honest. On the one side, the clients are not, we're not all honest in this whole deal. And on the other side, by an industry that doesn't work. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take insurance. And that's the issue.
But is there not a contradiction in that, Warren? I mean, should we not be working harder to make sure that the insurance industry is better at this stuff than it has been? I mean, we went through a big process a couple of years ago. You mentioned Rob Rusconi, the actuary, who was a very big advocate for better quality insurance. And there was a guy called Vuyani Ngalwana who shook the tree on things like retirement annuities and the sort of rip-off pay structures that the insurance companies placed on many of their products. And we saw a transformation of that for a while. Do we need that sort of catharsis to come into the products?
Yeah, we do. And frankly, we need people, proper companies, to come in and shake this up. The insurance industry was absolutely rocked by the unit trust industry when it started, because they, on the investment side, they were up to the similar kind of tricks. And for a long time, they didn't really attract money under investments because, the unit trust industry was transparent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel that's what this market is absolutely ripe for. Someone who comes in and says, simple policy, you're always covered under these conditions if you're honest. And I feel the regulator, sure, but what happens is, so the regulator is also not an actuary. And I mean, these life companies are massive with huge balance sheets, huge ability to lobby, as they are doing, against what they don't want. And my view is, let's get a real serious competitor who does this really simply and watch how the industry gets shaken up.
How do I know that the life product I have, the disability cover that I have, is any good at all? Give me that guidance, and then I shall let you go.
You want me to
run the gauntlet of actuaries outside the building.
and you want me to give you like a nice simple answer and something that's comforting, and my problem is I can't tell you that. I can't give you a simple answer. My view is...
But hold on a second. You're a guy who advises people on this stuff. You're a guy
I've written a few books on it.
You've written books on it. You're a guy who makes money out of this industry.
Whoa.
You can't give me that assurance?
I can't.
You do. Whether you give financial advice and you take an upfront fee for it, or whether you take a commission... this is your livelihood.
Yeah, and so my suggestion, as a constructive suggestion to people in this situation, is make sure you talk to at least 3 different people from 3 different companies who understand the stuff, who are experienced insurance brokers. Get them to critique the other company's products, and then you'll get a fairly good idea of what you've got. Is it worthwhile? Will you be covered? Because
I will put to you, sorry, Warren, Papa's going to start beating us over the head.
I'm watching Tara as well.
And Tara gets so cross. But this is important, Tara. So, I had a point. I can't remember the point.
Bye-bye.
I will think about the point, and I will come back at you next week with my point.
Okay.
Because this is important stuff.
I agree.
This really is important stuff. Warren Ingram, thank you. Galileo Capital.